She clapped her hands, and the WNBA decided that was worth a technical foul. Then the league reviewed it and made a decision that should terrify every fan who thought this was getting better. What you're about to hear isn't a rumor, isn't a leak, isn't some anonymous source with a grudge. It's on camera, it's on the record, and the player at the center of it just told the entire league, point blank, to go ahead and mark a date on the calendar for her own suspension. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand that this clapping technical is just the latest chapter in something that's been building for 2 full years. Stay till the end, because the league's final ruling on this is something even Caitlin Clark didn't expect. Before we go further, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because this story is nowhere close to finished. On June 22, 2026, the Indiana Fever beat the Phoenix Mercury 86-77. Caitlin Clark dropped 24 points and 9 assists, shooting 8 of 17 from the field, and led a furious comeback after the Fever scored just 3 points in the first 9 minutes and 58 seconds of the game. Indiana fell behind by as much as 16 points. Clark erased that deficit almost single-handedly in the second quarter, tied the game at the break, then put Indiana ahead for good with a big third-quarter run. By any normal measure, that's a signature performance. A star player dragging her team back from the dead. And yet, nobody is talking about the box score. They're talking about what happened in the fourth quarter. Clark got tangled up with DeWanna Bonner, a forward who had played for the Fever the season before and left under tense, well-publicized circumstances. The skirmish didn't stay contained to the two of them. Sophie Cunningham and Bonner got into it directly. Myisha Hines-Allen and Alyssa Thomas were pulled into the chaos as well. By the time the dust settled, 6 technical fouls had been issued in that single game, offsetting technicals across multiple players on both teams. And in the middle of all of it, Caitlin Clark clapped her hands. That's the action. Not a shove, not a word directed at an official, a clap. Clark didn't explode. She walked over to referee Gerda Gatling and asked directly, "What was that for?" Gatling's answer, clapping and instigating. Clark's response was calm, but it cut deep. "Okay then, you just don't like competitive basketball. That's just facts. That's just reality." She walked away, finished the game, and then went straight to the podium and said everything she'd been holding back during play. At the press conference, Clark didn't soften a single word. She called the technical ridiculous. She said she wanted to hear the league's actual reasoning on the record for why she got whistled for an action that nobody else on the court was penalized for in that moment. Then came the line that spread everywhere. "We should all just go on the calendar now and pick a game that I'm going to be suspended for if I'm going to get technicals for clapping." Here's why that single sentence carried so much weight. In the WNBA, hitting 8 technical fouls in a season triggers an automatic 1-game suspension. This was Clark's 5th technical in just 16 games played. She was now 3 technicals away from sitting out a game. Not in some distant theoretical future. 3 technicals away, with the bulk of the season still ahead. She closed it out with this: "I'm going to play with emotion. I'm going to play with passion. And if they're going to give me a technical foul for clapping, then so be it." Asked Gatling directly, got an answer she found absurd, and instead of melting down, turned it into one of the most quoted post-game statements of her career. That's not a player losing control. That's a player drawing a very deliberate line in public. To understand why this 5th technical hit as hard as it did, you have to go back, not just to this season, but to Clark's entire WNBA career. Because this is not a new storyline. It's the same storyline, wearing a different jersey number every few months. Start with her rookie season. The technical foul limit back then was 7, not 8. Clark finished that year with 6 technicals, 1 shy of a suspension in her very first season as a professional. That's the same player, the same intensity, the same competitive edge that's defined every minute she's played at this level. It was already raising questions back then about where the line was being drawn for her specifically. But the technicals were never really the center of the story in year one. The hits were. Early in her rookie season, Chicago Sky guard Chennedy Carter blindsided Clark with a hard hip check, a shot that knocked her down and drew no call whatsoever on the floor. The league reviewed the footage the next day and upgraded it to a flagrant 1. No call live, then a quiet correction once the clip had already gone viral across every sports platform in the country. That became the pattern. Hard contact, no whistle in real time, and then an upgrade after the fact once public pressure built. In a separate incident against the Connecticut Sun, J.C. Sheldon poked Clark in the eye, and on the very same play, Marina Mabrey shoved her hard to the floor. In real time, Mabrey was given nothing more than a technical foul and stayed in the game. The league later upgraded that one too, all the way to a flagrant 2 with a $400 fine attached. Still, no suspension. Clark herself, back during that rookie year, tried to brush it off publicly. "I think at this point I know I'm going to take a couple of hard shots a game, and that's what it is," she said at the time. "I'm trying not to let it bother me." That's a 22-year-old rookie in her first professional season, already normalizing the idea that she was going to absorb hits the rest of the league wasn't absorbing at the same rate. Fast forward to this season, just days before the clapping technical, and the pattern escalated into something the league couldn't quietly upgrade and move past. Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas made contact with her closed fist directly to Clark's throat during a game. Live. On the floor, it wasn't called as a foul at all. Fever head coach Stephanie White did not hold back afterward. "We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called," White said. "Number 1, you've got to call it. It's absolutely egregious and utterly disrespectful. And then, number 2, you're coming in here aware of what happened 2 nights ago, and that still happens? Absolutely unacceptable." White went further, invoking the league's own off-season officiating task force, one she had personally been part of. "We spent all off-season looking at officiating, and I still say the one thing that we keep asking for is consistency," she said. "Clark is not called the same way as everybody else is called. The fist in the throat is crazy. It's crazy. It's dangerous." The day after that statement, the league reviewed the play and upgraded Thomas's foul to a flagrant 2, resulting in a 1-game suspension for Thomas. It was a rare moment where the league actually moved fast and moved firmly. But notice the pattern one more time. No call live, public outrage, then a correction. This story got big enough that it reached well beyond basketball media. Longtime Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley publicly weighed in on how the league was officiating Clark specifically. When a sitting United States Senator is commenting on missed whistles in a basketball game, you already know this has stopped being a normal sports story. The game right after, and the injury that followed. 2 days after the throat incident, the Fever and Mercury played again. During that game, Clark went down hard after contact in the lane, and there was a separate, heavily circulated clip where she was closed out on by Phoenix defender Valeriana Ayayi. The officials actually stopped and reviewed that closeout live, on site, and still chose not to upgrade it to a reckless closeout foul. Clark left that game early in the second half because of back issues and did not return. The Fever lost 111-109. The extent of her back injury wasn't immediately clear, but it came directly on the heels of a stretch where her body had absorbed hit after hit that either went uncalled in real time or only got addressed after the footage circulated for 2 days straight. This is the player who, just 1 day after the clapping technical headlines, was also dealing with a back injury serious enough to pull her from a game. Same week, same opponent, same officiating crew structure, completely different type of physical toll, but the same underlying question hanging over every single one of these plays. Is the standard actually consistent, or does it bend depending on who's involved? The numbers don't lie, even if the whistle does. Here's what makes this entire conversation impossible to dismiss as one frustrated player complaining. By this point in the season, Clark was tied with Atlanta Dream forward Angel Reese for the most technical fouls in the league, 5 apiece. Two of the most heavily scrutinized, most heavily covered players in the sport, both sitting near the edge of suspension territory at the same time. And on top of all the officiating noise, Clark was playing some of the best basketball of her career. She hit the first game-winning shot of her WNBA career against the Washington Mystics on June 8th. She was averaging a career-best 21.2 points per game. She put up at least 20 points and 5 assists in 6 straight games, the longest such streak in WNBA history. This wasn't a player in decline looking for excuses. This was a player having arguably her best stretch as a professional, while simultaneously fighting a separate battle every single night against a whistle that didn't seem to be applying the same rules to her that it applied to everyone else on the floor. The league's official position. So the Fever did what teams are entitled to do. They filed a formal appeal on the clapping technical. Stephanie White confirmed it directly to reporters. "We have to send in some stuff to the league and appeal the technical," she said. "It's something we've done throughout the course of the year, something I'm sure we'll continue to do. But yeah, you have to send in the clips, you have to send in the appeal, and then you wait to hear what happens." So everyone waited. And here's the part of this story that should genuinely stop you, because it's the part most casual fans still don't fully understand. The league did review it. They looked at the footage, the appeal, Gatling's explanation, all of it. And on Thursday, June 25th, 3 days after the original game, the WNBA delivered its decision. The technical foul would not be rescinded. It stands. Read that twice if you need to. The league looked directly at a technical foul issued for clapping, the same explanation Clark called ridiculous in front of national media, and decided the call was correct. Not borderline, not something they'd quietly let slide either way to avoid more headlines. Correct. On the record. This wasn't a referee getting overruled by her own league days later. The league's head of referee performance and development, Sue Blauck, had actually addressed this exact category of call publicly before. "Players generally know what's permissible in terms of a heat-of-the-moment response," Blauck said. "We never want to adjudicate passion out of the game, but overreactions to a call or a no call, clapping at an official, waving them off, things like that. Obviously, there's some magic words that fall into that category. Whether you agree with that standard or not, the league has now told you, in writing, that it is the standard. And that is the part of this entire saga that should actually concern people who care about where this league is headed. Not that one referee made one questionable call in one chaotic fourth quarter, but that the entire organization reviewed it with full context and stood behind it anyway. Two competing realities, and neither one is comfortable. Step back and look at the full picture this season has built. There are 2 explanations for what's been happening around Caitlin Clark and WNBA officiating, and honestly, neither one reflects particularly well on the league. The first possibility is that some officials have developed a specific sensitivity around Clark, whether consciously or not, and they're holding her reactions to a different standard than the physical contact she absorbs from opponents. That would mean the calls that go against her are inconsistent in a way that specifically disadvantages her. while the calls that should protect her physically keep getting missed live and only corrected after public pressure forces a review. The second possibility doesn't require anyone to be deliberately targeting her at all. It only requires that some officials are uncomfortable with how visibly competitive she plays. The passion, the emotion, the reactions that come out in body language and, yes, in clapping. If that's the actual trigger, if pure competitive energy is what's getting whistled while genuine physical fouls against her keep slipping through uncalled, then this isn't a Clark problem. It's a structural officiating problem that happens to be most visible whenever she's on the floor because she's the most watched player in the sport. There's also a third perspective worth being fair to, one that a lot of analysts have raised. If you only watch Clark's games closely, you see every hard foul, every questionable no call, every borderline technical that goes against her specifically. You don't see the same volume of physical contact other stars around the league absorb on nights you're not tuned in. From that angle, when the league did suspend Alyssa Thomas and did upgrade that foul, that's actually the system working the way it's supposed to. And some voices in the league have warned that turning every missed call into a conspiracy narrative risks distracting from the real league-wide consistency problem that affects players beyond just Clark. The honest answer, the one that doesn't make for the cleanest headline but happens to be the most accurate one, is that the publicly available record doesn't cleanly prove either extreme. What it does prove, beyond any argument, is that the WNBA has repeatedly had to review and correct calls involving Clark after the fact, again and again, season after season. That alone tells you the on-court officiating in these specific moments is not getting it right the first time, regardless of which explanation you find more convincing. Where this leaves her right now. So here's exactly where things stand. 5 technical fouls. The bulk of the regular season schedule still ahead. 3 more technicals, and Caitlin Clark sits out a game. Not as some distant hypothetical, but as a very real number she's now publicly aware of and openly talking about at podiums. The league has made its position on the clapping call official and final. That standard isn't quietly going away just because one game generated 48 hours of viral attention. The same officials are working the same games going forward. The same threshold is still ticking down. Which brings up the real question buried underneath all of this. It's not whether Caitlin Clark is going to keep playing with the same competitive fire that built this entire cultural moment around women's basketball. She's already answered that one herself, on the record multiple times. She's not changing how she plays. The real question is whether the league is going to keep finding ways to whistle her for it, while the hard, physical fouls against her keep needing 2 days and a viral clip before they get corrected. Because if that pattern continues, the suspension Clark joked about at that podium stops being a joke. It becomes a countdown. And every single person who helped build this league into what it is right now, the fans who filled arenas that used to sit half empty, the broadcasters who built entire programming blocks around her games, they're going to be watching exactly how the WNBA handles the next chapter of this. One whistle and one missed whistle at a time.